AITA for telling my wife she can't have it both ways after she forced me to join her friend group and then got jealous when I actually enjoyed myself. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, 33F, for 9 years. We have 2 kids together, an 8-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. For the most part, I would say our marriage has been steady, supportive, and, compared to some of the stories I read online, relatively drama-free. We aren't the type of couple who fights over every little thing, and we've never really struggled with jealousy or insecurity. If anything, I'd say our foundation is trust, and that trust has carried us through a lot of the normal challenges life throws at you when you're balancing work, marriage, and raising young kids. But recently, something happened that shook that balance in a way I honestly didn't expect. And the strange part is, it all started because of my wife's work friends. About a year ago, my wife started hanging out with a group of people from her office. At first, I was happy for her. She works really hard, and I always encourage her to make time for herself outside of just being a mom and a partner. Having a social circle is important, and she seemed to genuinely enjoy spending time with this group. The group itself was made up of 4 people, 2 married men and 2 divorced women, one of them very recently divorced. The dynamic seemed to work for them, and whenever they met up, my wife always came back looking happier, more relaxed, and energized. To me, that was a good thing. She invited me along to one of their hangouts early on, and I went because, well, that's what a supportive spouse does. But truthfully, I didn't connect with the group. The conversations were almost entirely centered around work, projects, office gossip, inside jokes. And since I wasn't part of that world, I felt like an outsider looking in. I don't blame them. It wasn't malicious. It just wasn't my kind of crowd. After that, I told my wife honestly, I don't think I really fit in with that group. I don't mind you going. In fact, I think you should keep going because you enjoy it, but I'd rather stay home with the kids when you hang out with them. She seemed fine with that arrangement. It made sense too. We'd save money on a babysitter, she got her social time, and I got a bond with the kids during her nights out. And that worked for a while. She went, I stayed, life moved on. But then something shifted. Over time, the group started nudging her to bring me along more often. From what she told me, some of the men had begun bringing their wives, and one of the divorced women had started dating someone new. So she was showing up with a partner. That meant my wife was the only one coming solo. I think she started to feel a little self-conscious about it, and the group encouraged her to just bring your husband along. At first, she didn't push me too hard, but eventually she told me it was important to her that I come. We argued about it a little bit. I felt like I'd already made my stance clear, but when she pressed, I gave in. I figured, okay, marriage is about compromise. If this is something that really matters to her, I'll make the effort. What I didn't realize at the time was that this compromise would plant the seeds of an argument we're still having today. So, the first couple of times I went with my wife to hang out with this group of her colleagues, I did my best to keep an open mind. I figured maybe I'd been too quick to judge them, and if I gave another shot, maybe I'd find something in common. But honestly, those first few attempts were exactly as I had expected. Everyone fell naturally into their work banter, inside jokes about managers, shared stories from projects, and office politics. I sat there politely, sipping on my drink, nodding and smiling in the right places, but I wasn't really involved. It's not that they were unfriendly. In fact, they tried a couple of times to loop me into the conversations. But when you're not part of that daily work environment, you don't know the characters, you don't have the context, and it all just ends up feeling like background noise. I was the odd man out, and though nobody made me feel excluded, I couldn't help but feel I didn't belong. After the 3rd or 4th outing, I told my wife directly, look, I love that you have these friends. They clearly mean a lot to you, and I can see that spending time with them makes you happy. But for me, this isn't fun. It's not my crowd, and I'd honestly rather stay home with the kids. She understood, at least at first. She said she didn't want to force me into situations where I wasn't comfortable, and that worked for a while. She would go out once every couple of weeks, have her time, and I'd hold down the fort at home. I even kind of liked the arrangement because I got special time with our son and daughter. We'd order pizza, watch movies, and it felt like a little bonding ritual for us. But then something shifted and the pressure started building. My wife began hinting more strongly that she wanted me to come along again. At first, it was subtle. She'd say things like, it would be nice if you were there too, or everyone else's partners are coming. I feel kind of weird going alone. I brushed it off, reminding her that she had agreed I didn't have to go, but the hints turned into more direct requests. Eventually, she admitted that the group had been pushing her to bring me along. Apparently, the 2 married men in the group had started bringing their wives regularly, and one of the divorced women had recently begun dating someone new, so she was showing up with her boyfriend. That meant my wife was the only one showing up without her partner, and she said it made her feel awkward, like she was being left out of the couple's dynamic that had developed. I understood where she was coming from. I don't think she was trying to guilt me. I think she genuinely felt uncomfortable being the odd one out. Still, I was hesitant. I told her, if I come, I don't want to feel like I'm just there to check a box. If I'm going, I need to be able to actually enjoy myself too. She promised it wouldn't be so bad, and eventually I gave in. I told myself it was just part of being a supportive husband. Sometimes you make sacrifices, even if it's not your favorite thing to do, because it matters to the person you love. So I agreed to go with her the next time the group planned to get together. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn, because while I was bracing myself for another night of awkwardly sitting through work talk, I ended up finding a surprising silver lining. At that next hangout, one of the men, let's call him Chris, 35M, brought his wife, Emily, 32F. I had seen her once before, but we had barely exchanged pleasantries. This time, though, we ended up sitting near each other, and to my surprise, we hit it off immediately. It turned out Emily and I shared a ton of interests. We were both into the same kind of TV shows, we both loved anime, and we could talk endlessly about movies. While the rest of the group was deep into office gossip, Emily and I were geeking out over our favorite series. For the first time, I wasn't sitting in silence, waiting for the night to end. I was actually having fun. In the back of my mind, I thought, okay, maybe this isn't so bad after all. I even felt like I had cracked the code. If my wife really wanted me there, I could now actually enjoy myself instead of just enduring the experience. I thought she'd be relieved that I wasn't dragging my feet anymore. But what I didn't realize was that this new dynamic was about to create a whole different kind of problem. That night changed everything for me. Up until then, every outing with my wife's work friends had felt like an obligation, something I had to endure rather than enjoy. But sitting there with Emily, talking about our favorite shows, debating over which anime had the best character arcs, laughing at the same movie references, it was like I finally had a reason to be there. For the first time, I wasn't counting down the minutes until it was polite enough to suggest heading home. It felt like such a relief. I didn't have to force myself to fake enthusiasm about office drama I didn't care about. I didn't have to sit in silence, awkwardly watching everyone else have fun. I had someone to talk to who genuinely made the evening enjoyable. And honestly, I thought this was a win-win for everyone. My wife wanted me there. I had resisted, but now, thanks to Emily, I actually looked forward to going. My wife wouldn't feel like the odd one out anymore, and I wouldn't feel like I was sacrificing my sanity for her comfort. In my mind, this was the perfect solution. If anything, I thought my wife would be relieved. She no longer had to beg me to come. I was willing, even happy, to show up now. For the next few hangouts, that's exactly how it played out. My wife and I would arrive together. She'd get to enjoy her colleagues' company, and I'd spend the evening talking with Emily while the others drifted in and out of conversation. I wasn't glued to her side, but naturally, since we clicked, we gravitated toward each other. We laughed, shared recommendations, and compared notes on the latest shows we'd both been watching. What made it easier for me to relax was that nothing about our interaction crossed any lines. Emily and I weren't exchanging numbers, we weren't messaging outside of these group outings, and we certainly weren't flirting. It was just easy, natural conversation between two people who happened to share similar interests. I thought it was as harmless as it could possibly be. But then I started to notice a shift in my wife's demeanor. At first, it was subtle. She'd get quieter during the evenings, her smile looking a little more forced. She stopped chiming into our conversations with her usual enthusiasm. Then, when we got home afterward, she'd make little comments like, "You seem to be having a lot of fun tonight," or, "You and Emily sure have a lot to talk about." I brushed it off, assuming she was just tired, but the comments kept coming. They grew sharper, edged with something that sounded a lot like jealousy. Finally, one night after we got home, she came right out and said it. "I think it's weird how close you're getting to Emily." That accusation caught me off guard. Weird? Close? To me, it wasn't weird at all. It was the most normal, innocent thing in the world. I told her the truth, that Emily was simply the one person in the group I connected with. I didn't see it as anything strange, but my wife wasn't convinced. She said it made her uncomfortable. She asked me if I could make more of an effort to engage with the rest of the group instead of spending most of my time talking to Emily. And that's when the frustration started to build inside me. From my perspective, this whole situation was backwards. I never wanted to be there in the first place. I went because my wife insisted. Now, after I finally found a way to make it tolerable, she was telling me that the way I was enjoying myself was a problem. How was that fair? I tried to reassure her. I told her there was nothing between Emily and me beyond casual conversation. I reminded her that I didn't have Emily's number, I didn't follow her on social media, and I had zero contact with her outside these hangouts. But it didn't seem to matter. My wife's jealousy was growing, and the very thing that had made these nights bearable for me was now the spark for a new conflict in our marriage. What I had thought was the perfect solution was quickly turning into a whole new problem. The more I tried to reassure my wife, the less reassured she seemed to feel. It was frustrating because I truly believed I had done nothing wrong. I wasn't hiding anything. I wasn't sneaking around. Everything she saw, every interaction between Emily and me, happened right in front of her and the entire group. It wasn't like we were disappearing into a corner or sharing private jokes that excluded everyone else. We were just talking openly about things we both enjoyed. But in my wife's eyes, that was the problem. She said it wasn't just about what I was doing, it was about the energy between us. She said it was obvious I was more alive when I was talking to Emily, that my face lit up in a way it didn't when I was with anyone else at those outings. She felt like she was losing me to someone else, even if it was just in conversation. I tried to explain that this was exactly the point. I didn't click with the rest of her group, but I did with Emily. That didn't mean anything more than what it looked like. It was a lifeline for me in an otherwise boring, awkward environment. But my wife didn't see it that way. To her, it was uncomfortable, threatening even. One night, after another hangout ended with us bickering in the car ride home, she laid it out clearly. She said, "I don't like how close you are to Emily. I want you to make more of an effort with the others. Don't just spend the whole time talking to her." That was the moment my patience snapped a little. I told her, "You can't have it both ways. You want me to come to these events, and I've told you I don't like them. Now that I've actually found a way to enjoy myself, you're telling me I'm doing it wrong. What do you expect me to do? Force myself to sit there in silence again, just so you can feel comfortable?" She didn't like that answer. She accused me of being selfish, of not caring about her feelings. She said that if I truly respected her, I'd put her comfort above my own. But to me, it felt like she was asking me to put myself last, again and again, just to satisfy some arbitrary standard. I reminded her that this was her choice. She was the one who wanted me to come. I was fine staying home with the kids. But if she insisted on me being there, then she had to accept that I was going to gravitate toward the one person who made the night tolerable for me. That wasn't betrayal. That was survival. The tension carried over into the next few days. She was colder toward me, shorter in her responses. I could tell she was stewing on it. At one point, she even suggested that maybe I was minimizing the situation, that maybe I didn't realize how inappropriate it looked from the outside. That suggestion made me angry, because I'd been so careful not to cross any lines. If anything, I'd bent over backward to make sure my interactions with Emily stayed firmly within the bounds of casual group conversation. I told her flat out, "If you're that uncomfortable, then stop inviting me. Go without me. I won't complain. But don't drag me there and then tell me how I'm supposed to act when I'm just trying to make the best of it." That was the real heart of it, I think. It wasn't that I didn't care about her feelings. It was that she seemed to want control over mine. She wanted me there, but only on her terms. She wanted me to show up, but also to remain half engaged and miserable, just so she could say I was present. And to me, that wasn't fair. That wasn't marriage. That was control. It felt like no matter how I tried to navigate the situation, I was going to lose. If I stayed home, she felt left out. If I went and had a bad time, I was resentful. If I went and actually enjoyed myself, she was jealous. There was no winning move. And the more I thought about it, the more it started to feel petty. She wasn't mad about any boundary being crossed, because none were. She was mad that I wasn't miserable when she wanted me to be. After that blow-up, I realized I had to draw a line. For weeks, I had bent over backward to try to make my wife happy. First, by going to these hangouts when I didn't want to. Then, by being transparent about why I found them boring. Finally, by actually finding a way to make them enjoyable without crossing any lines. And yet, every step I took seemed to just create a new problem. So one evening, after the kids went to bed and the house was quiet, I sat down with her at the kitchen table. I told her we needed to talk. Not another fight in the car after a hangout. Not some sarcastic jabs tossed in passing. A real conversation. I started by being honest. I don't want to go to these hangouts. I never have. But I went because it mattered to you. Then, I found a way to actually make it tolerable for me. And suddenly that's a problem too. So here's the truth. You need to decide. Either you want me there, and if I go, I'm going to do what makes the night bearable. Or you go without me, and I'll happily stay home with the kids. But you don't get to force me to come and then dictate how I behave just to suit your comfort. She didn't like hearing that. She said I was being stubborn, that marriage isn't about ultimatums. But I countered, this isn't an ultimatum. This is me setting boundaries. Because right now you're asking me to show up, to give up my time, and then to police the one part of it I actually enjoy. That isn't fair to me. You're trying to have it both ways, and I won't play along. The words hung heavy in the room. I could see the conflict on her face. She wanted me there because she wanted to look like every other couple in the group. But she also wanted to control the dynamic to avoid her own discomfort. And she couldn't admit that both of those things couldn't exist together. I reminded her again that nothing inappropriate was happening. I didn't have Emily's number. I didn't follow her on social media. I didn't even think about her outside those group gatherings. If you're worried about losing me, I said, then you don't need to be. Because I'm not going anywhere. But if you're worried about me having a decent conversation with someone so I don't sit there miserable, then that's your insecurity talking, not reality. She tried to argue that her feelings should come first, that as her husband, it was my job to make her feel secure no matter what. And to an extent, I agreed. I do care about her feelings. I always have. But I also said, your feelings can't mean I erase my own. Supporting you doesn't mean sacrificing myself every single time. That's not a partnership. That's one person getting their way while the other grins and bears it. I could tell she didn't like being called out that way, but I stood firm. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't cruel. I was calm but direct. This was my line in the sand. I told her plainly, "You're my wife. You're the person I chose to build a life with, the person I love and respect. But love doesn't mean letting you control how I experience every situation. If you want me there, I will be there. If you don't, I won't. But you don't get to decide both that I must come and also that I must be miserable while I'm there. That's not love. That's control." The silence that followed was thick. She looked at me, her jaw tight, her eyes searching my face for some sign that I cave like I usually do. But I didn't. For once, I wasn't leaving the door open to negotiation. I was giving her the choice, and I meant it. That night, we didn't resolve much. She went to bed angry, and I sat at the table for a while, staring at the empty glasses between us. But for the first time since this whole mess began, I felt like I had actually taken a stand for myself. And even though I knew it would probably lead to more conflict, I also knew it was the only way forward. Because without clear boundaries, resentment would keep growing, and neither of us would come out of it unscathed. After that night, things between my wife and me felt tense, like we were walking around with invisible weights on our shoulders. Conversations were shorter, smiles were thinner, and there was a heaviness in the air that neither of us wanted to acknowledge directly. I think we were both waiting to see who would bend first. A week later, another hangout invite came from her group. This time, I didn't even bring it up. I figured she would decide whether I should come or not. She mentioned it casually over dinner, and when I didn't jump in, she finally asked, "So, are you coming this time?" I looked at her and said, "It's your call. You know where I stand." That answer irritated her. She accused me of being passive-aggressive, of making her the bad guy by forcing her to choose. But that was exactly the point I had made before. It was her choice. She was the one who wanted me there, and if she wanted me there, then she had to accept that I would make the best of it in my own way. She didn't like that framing. She snapped, "Why can't you just prioritize me? Why can't you, for once, put my feelings above your own?" And that's when I laid it all out as clearly as I could. "I've been prioritizing you. For months, I've been going to these things I don't enjoy because it mattered to you. I sat there in silence, bored out of my mind, so you wouldn't feel left out. And when I finally found a way to enjoy myself, without stepping outside a single boundary, you decided that wasn't good enough either. You want me there, but you don't want me to have fun unless it's on your terms. That's not about prioritizing your feelings. That's about controlling mine." She fell silent at that, but her expression said everything. Hurt, frustration, anger. She wasn't used to me pushing back like this. That weekend, we ended up having another argument about it. She told me she felt like I was dismissing her emotions, that I wasn't being sensitive to her discomfort. I told her that her discomfort was coming from a place of insecurity, not reality. And as harsh as it sounded, I wasn't going to keep paying the price for feelings I hadn't caused. I reminded her again, I don't text Emily. I don't follow her online. I don't see her outside of those hangouts. The only time we even speak is when we're in a group setting, sitting in the same circle as everyone else. If that's enough to make you jealous, I said, then the problem isn't me. It's your insecurity. And I can't fix that for you. That conversation ended with her storming off, saying I was being selfish and dismissive. And maybe in her eyes I was. Maybe she sees this as me digging in my heels instead of giving her what she needs. But here's where I stand. I don't believe love means erasing yourself for the other person. I don't believe marriage means one partner gets to set the rules while the other quietly plays along. I've given and given and given on this issue, and now I feel like I'm being asked to give up the one sliver of enjoyment I found in all of it. So I told her again as calmly as I could, you have to decide. Either I stay home and you go without me, or I come along and I get to enjoy myself in the way that makes sense for me. But you don't get to have it both ways. She didn't answer. She just shook her head, and the silence between us said more than words ever could. Now I'm left here wondering, am I wrong for drawing this line? Should I have swallowed my pride and just kept playing along, even if it meant being miserable? Or is she the one being unfair, asking me to show up for her, but also demanding that I do it on her terms only? I can't tell anymore. Maybe I'm blinded by my own frustration. Maybe I'm justified. Maybe I'm the asshole here, or maybe I'm not. So Reddit, AITA for telling my wife she can't have it both ways?